YouTube, Brian Phillips here. We've got the PA-18 from FMS. Looks super sharp, really nice scale lines. It comes equipped with flaps, ailerons, elevator, and rudder, of course. And then this does have the Reflex V2. Even in the ready to fly, you're gonna get the provided transmitter, which is FR Sky, I believe. And then it's going to come with pneumatic tires, which are super cool because you've got that cool squish to them. But at the same time, we're not sure how we feel about it because we think it might bounce a lot. So for now, enjoy the LEDs and all the features, and we're gonna see how this does. I do have the provided Predator 2200 3S pack pushed all the way almost to the nose, and so it's splitting the difference on the first strap. The second strap is unused right now. So without further ado, here we go. Takeoff flaps are on. Oh yeah. Super easy to get off the ground. Relatively calm right now. Well, she's looking good. Need a little bit of down trim on the elevator. But don't trim too much because you do have flaps deployed, Brian. Look at that thing. It's just sitting still. Let me show you the wind speed there. Okay, so we're gonna come out of the flaps. Now there's no delay or elevator compensation on here, so you may notice a little bit less crispy flight than what you're used to. And that's normal because if you don't have that mix, it's gonna change the way that everything works. But as you can see, I'm about 50% throttle here. We're gonna come down and around. You good? Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. Down in the bowl.
But this is also available in a plug and play.
That's right.
Version. So if you want to use your own gear, you can.
If you were to hook this up with the AR620 using the provided Reflex, I think you would get really, really good results. And I think that's an 11.7 prop, if I'm remembering right. There's takeoff flaps. Let's do the bowl just one more time. Absolutely easy to fly plane. Just a little bit sensitive on the sticks for a beginner plane, I would say, but of course we're in the stabilized mode right now. And you'll also note that because I don't have the elevator compensation, the alpha flight appearance is coming out because I don't want to have to hold my stick forward the whole flight. Now, full landing flaps here. We'll do another circuit for you. You guys see what I'm talking about. If I let off the sticks, look at that alpha performance. It's basically just slowing the plane down, creating that drag, changing the wing shape. And so in order to keep flying, you have to really force that nose down, and it can be a bit of a drag having to hold that stick down. But if you were in auto leveling, I don't think you would experience that so much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and flip over to it right now. There's full auto leveling. So when I let go of the sticks, I'll show you this. Even with flaps on, it just brings it to a neutral, flat position. As soon as you let go, it doesn't straighten the flight path, it just flattens the plane. So if you have enough power, okay, now coming out of the flaps, you'll see it'll speed up because it's gonna change the attitude just a little bit of the aircraft. So as you can see with that auto leveling feature, it does work pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out of the auto leveling. There is a no stabilizer mode in the middle, which I don't generally fly unstabilized. Come behind your camera. So here's full throttle, just to show you what type of power we're dealing with. We do have a little voltage alarm in there just to make sure we're not gonna totally kill this thing. No telemetry on voltage for your pack as you're flying. You hear something squeaking?
I do. Is it the wheel maybe?
I think so. Might have been a bird.
Or a bird.
Ground effect. And you see how it's nice and bouncy. Let's go up here in the shade.
Okay.
Cornhole. It does cornhole in the ready to fly configuration, right to the center. So normally I don't fly, that's fine. I don't usually fly Cub style planes this way, but the thing is I want you guys to know that you can do it. See what I'm talking about, guys? Nice and bouncy. Now that was not a very good approach, admittedly, And I'm flying directly into the wind now. That's pretty much exactly where the wind feels like it's coming from. And I would definitely say that in terms of a beginner aircraft, you've definitely got plenty of performance available on 3S. I don't think it feels lame at all. I feel like if you were gonna fly this thing on 3S all the time, you would be totally happy. But one thing I don't like is where the flap switch is. 3-wheeled landings are quite easy, okay? It does definitely tame the plane. I'm gonna go into the takeoff flaps and we'll do a STOL takeoff and takeoff flaps. Okay, so we're gonna be mindful to get the tail up and then we're gonna jank it back, okay? So full throttle, up and then there. So as you can see, you could get off the ground and what is that, about 10, 12 feet if that. Now what I'll do is I'll go around, do a quick circuit and we'll land. This is with takeoff flaps. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna land and then we'll hit it with landing flaps. Okay, so landing flaps are here. Just bring it in, and like I said, if you do a 3-wheel landing, it's quite easy. Okay, so janking the rudder to slow it down. I'm in full landing flaps this time. We're gonna see how we can do our STOL takeoff. Okay, so remember, be mindful to get the tail up first and then jank it back and that'll get you in the air. Full throttle, tail up, boom, there it is. And plenty of power to overcome. You don't get into one of these unrecoverable stalls, so that's always nice, especially for a beginner aircraft. I do feel like the rudder is pretty sensitive and the elevator is pretty sensitive. Okay, I'm gonna go out of the flaps altogether for a beginner plane. And I must say, if you're a beginner, you may wanna actually move the control linkage on the elevator and the rudder in one hole on the servo end. And that's going to help soften the sticks. It almost like be a lower rate for you as a beginner pilot. You're gonna get more precision and a little bit less output, but that's actually probably a good thing because I had that battery pushed all the way forward. And if you're using the provided 2200 3S, you may actually find that it's a little bit too sensitive and touchy. Now, if you're flying a bigger pack, I think you may actually deaden that a little bit. Okay, full landing flaps on the final. Trying to force the nose down, but I can't because if I force the nose down, then I actually go down. So there you have it, guys. That is the PA-18. Beautiful squishy tires, all the different features that we demand. And I don't know if I even mentioned it earlier, but there is no throttle cut on this aircraft, so be extra careful when you're doing your radio setup that you don't cut your hands because it is very easy to bump the stick, guys. See how easy that is? All I did was just bump my coat a little bit and it will set this thing moving and it will cut you. So in our build, just like always, I put the prop on, but I need to stress this enough. Be very careful, don't get cut because there is no throttle cut on this machine unless you get it in the plug and play. So thoughts about this ready to fly. First of all, I feel like the Fly Sky transmitter is okay. It does the job. The sticks are a little bit loose for my taste. They feel a little bit too soft. I would like them to be tightened up. That would help a lot with the rates of the airplane. Also, I'm gonna have the camera crew carefully hold that. I wanna show you this. On the back of the plane, if you take and move this elevator in one hole, it will help to relax the plane a little bit. And if you take this and you go in even yet one more hole, your rudder will be less awake. Now, as a more experienced pilot, I love having a lot of rudder. In fact, I'd probably do more rudder. But the thing is, because I don't have dual rates in Expo, I can't soften the middle of the sticks. And because the throttle stick is so sloppy, let's say, or loose, or whatever you want to call it, I'm used to more of a firm hold on that stick from the spring tension on an NX8 or a more higher quality transmitter. I mean, granted, this is really good for a ready to fly. It's still not the same.
No.
So also I want to show you these squishy tires do have an inflation point right here, and it does come with the provided adapter. So you can use your air compressor or whatever. And then these do move out. These springs are mostly for looks because you get most of your spring effect from the actual landing gear. But I think this is a really well-built plane. And it also separates in two, but I don't see people undoing it for transport. It does make for a lot easier shipping. And so that's very important. But one thing to keep in mind, this plane is a little bit fast for a beginner plane. Even with auto leveling, I feel like it's a little bit loose. That being said, it's not a bad beginner plane. It's just not as good as we've seen in the past because it is loose on the sticks. If you move this one in one more, you'll have even less aileron authority. You have to move both. And just so you guys know, as a beginner pilot, when you use flaps, you want elevator compensation. When the flaps come down, the elevator should also come down. And that's a very important mix that's gonna come on virtually any high quality programmable transmitter. And what you can do is program in the flaps to come down at a delay and the elevator to come down. That's gonna make you fly in a straight line and just slow down. You can also change the angle of attack easier without getting into that weird wonky behavior of the flight like this. I don't like flying around Cubs like that. That's not fun. It's not a good flight performance for me. But also you could add nose weight and also remedy a couple of these issues because you would make the plane fly more nose heavy. Now they did mold in here these bumps, but the bumps are on the wrong side. You can't feel them on the top of the wing. But you can see we're pretty much perfectly CG'd. Like I said, if you take this provided battery and you slide it forward even more, you might find that it's just a little bit more agreeable. And so I'm gonna show you with it all the way to the firewall. Okay, so take off flaps here. Okay, so takeoff flaps are deployed. And I just wanna see how the elevator feels. Now we have a constant wind. It's not super strong. It's definitely not nothing. But as you can see, it still flies reasonably good, but it's gonna tame that elevator because you see how sensitive that elevator is. I'm giving about 5% to 10% input to do that maneuver. And for a beginner, over controlling is a big problem, okay? And you can see just the way that it responds to my rudder input and everything. That is customary of somebody that's used to a different control. So what you're gonna wanna do is if you're considering this as a ready to fly for a beginner, I think it's not a bad choice, but just make sure that you understand what you're getting into is going to be a little bit higher learning curve than some other choices. The LEDs are huge. They make a big improvement, especially around fall time when you're flying below the tree line. You see how this plane is easy to see when you're up close, but watch this. I'm gonna give you one more demo. As we fly back over this tree line, now imagine the sun was behind the airplane. You'd have a silhouette. And as I come in for final, watch what happens. I go over the top of this tree line. When I come down, watch what happens to the plane. It's gonna disappear, okay? Imagine it's all silhouetted. You won't know where that thing is in time and space. And then look how touchy the landing gear are. You would think those squishies would be darn near perfect. But on grass hops are gorgeous with these pneumatic tires. Okay, so here we go. Let's do a grass hops takeoff. Absolutely no problems, looks super realistic out of the flaps. And then you've got that hokey transitional period. But as you can see, the thing definitely does good. Let's do a no flap landing to end it all off. I'm gonna do a slip with the rudder, forcing the nose down, and then let's see if we can get that thing to glide into ground effect. And not very good. I think we've just got a little bit of crosswind going. So guys, as you can see, the plane as configured for ready to fly leaves just a little bit to be desired. It's still a great platform. I love the 1.7 meter. That's a really good plane. But I think really what I don't love about this is just the small details about the ready to fly that don't hold true to the NX8 experience. And so if you really want the better experience, buy the plug and play and then go ahead and invest in a better radio. But I think that's unreasonable to expect that a beginner is going to do. So that being said, I'm gonna tell you the exact same thing on the Carbon Cub and the 1.3. You're gonna have the same experience. The ready to fly transmitter is not gonna give you as good a flight experience, but I must say, it edges closer to the NX8 experience out of box. Also, it edges closer to the full NX8 experience because they have configured that as a beginner aircraft, whereas this is configured as a regular aircraft that happens to be slapped on to a beginner application. So I feel like the design features on this are for a skilled pilot that just wants a 1.3. That's a good move. I also don't have a problem with ready to flies. We do a lot of them, but I do think that you're gonna find better performance on a plug and play. And a plug and play is gonna give you all the same wonderful features that this plane has, but you're gonna be able to soften the sticks and get it just so. So that's what I'm gonna tell you about this plane. It's a great plane. I would probably nudge you toward the plug and play. If you're an experienced pilot, there's no reason why you'd be buying this if you have an NX8. You're just wasting your money. But that being said, if you have no equipment, you have no gear, this comes with the charger, it comes with the battery, it comes with everything except for the 4 AA's that we put in the back here. So you're up in the air, I mean, hypothetically. Problem is, it's a little harder to fly than I want it to be for a beginner. Even in auto leveling, it's a little bit touchy. So take my advice, move the elevator in one hole, move the rudder in one hole, you'll thank me later. Make sure you're in this mode when you take off. That's gonna automatically level the plane, so that stick is down here. And remember, these sticks are not gonna be the same layout of your end game transmitter if you follow along on Brian Phillips RC, because we're gonna push you into something that we're used to, like the NX8, NX6, that sort of thing. So I usually have my flaps over here because I can get to them without losing control of the elevator. It's a terrible time to be, coming off the sticks or losing my orientation or dinking around to get to flaps. I need to be riding that elevator in final. So that being said, especially when you need to ride the elevator to compensate for something that would normally be tied in. So definitely some real concerns if you're a beginner pilot. If you're an experienced pilot, this thing is rock solid. It's a great plane. It goes together pretty easy. It's a lot of screws, but it's not hard. There's no glue. It's really well built.
And you can all the features.
Yep, that's right. It's got the LEDs, it's got flaps, it's got squishy tires. It's everything we've been demanding. I do feel like the squishy tires could use a little bit of work in that you might want to take more air pressure out because I feel like they're still a little bit too springy. Okay, so that's something that can be played with. Also in the cold weather, they tend to get a little harder, and it's cold this morning. So what I was going to suggest is if you get this thing and you want it to give you the best performance, just play with the tire pressure. You do get the provided tool to actually go in there. It's like what you use to fill your basketballs or whatever.
Yeah.
It looks just like that, but I didn't actually play with the pressure. I left them as it was. So very cool plane. Good job, FMS. Beginners, be careful with this one. It's not a bad choice. It's just that you're gonna have to be on the spectrum of beginner pilots. You're gonna have to be toward the better end of the spectrum of beginner pilots than the like really, really poor, in your skills.
Super beginner.
Really super beginner. Yeah. And I say that as kind as I can, because the thing is, when you start flying, you're gonna understand, you're like, he's looking out for me, and I think you're gonna get that. But the thing is, when you're brand new and you've got this, like, I can do it, it's not that big a deal. The first time you fly and you realize that you're in control of that flying thing with like a spinning piece of plastic and metal on it, you're gonna be scared to death. I don't care what plane it is. It's gonna be Sport Car, the SUMX, it's this big, weighs 100 grams. You're gonna be scared, and you won't believe me until you do it. Because you're gonna be like, no, whatever, dude. I can handle it, I'm a man. Or whatever, I don't know, maybe you're not a man. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you're not gonna believe me until you try it. And then you're gonna be like, wow, that's scary.
So if somebody had a UMX and a ready to fly, and they really liked it, they flew it a bunch, they have some experience, and they want to go to something bigger size-wise, but they're not ready to commit to a whole setup.
Yeah, if you have the skill level to fly a UMX in safe, you have the skill level to fly this thing. But the thing is, I gotta warn you, this is harder to fly than a UMX with safe, and here's why. Because safe is a little bit better refined technology. I'm not gonna mince my words about that. The reflex is great, but it's not quite the same. It's also a lot more economical. So the thing is, if you're looking apples to apples in stabilization, I feel like it does just fine. It's good enough. It's not, maybe AS3X edges it out. Let's say AS3X is like 90% perfect. This is like a 75 or 80% perfect. So it's really good. But the thing is, on the safe is like a 90% perfect, whereas You know, I feel like the reflex is more like maybe a 60 or a 65 or a 70, depending on the plane. Because I feel like Safe is better refined, and the engineering staff that works on the Spectrum gear tend to get these things refined a little bit better. Now, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with Reflex. I think Reflex or Reflex V2 are both good solutions. They work well. They're generally what you need. But the thing is, if you're a beginner, you want every advantage you can get. I mean, every little advantage. Don't fly when there's wind. You know, make sure the sun's in the right spot. Make sure you have time. Don't be rushed. Make sure you got your batteries charged before you get there.
Don't be cold.
Don't be cold. It will change your physiological response. Your hands are going to get cold. Make sure you get something. I wear nitro gloves that keep my fingers from being really cold. But if it's cold, don't fly when you're brand new. You need to be comfortable. You need to be in your best state of mind. You don't want to be really pissed off. You don't want to be really excited because you're going to get yourself all worked up. And it's so weird because flying a plane is a lot harder than it looks. And that's why we have this channel, is because people are like, wow, you know, it's like, look at that little piece of foam. And people that don't understand anything about the hobby watch this and they think, how hard can it be? Just try it once and you'll understand. It's a lot harder than it looks, but you can do it. And the technology today is better than it's ever been to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And you're in the perfect spot for that at Brian Phillips RC. We're here to help you. You want to help pat us on the back, buy that plane or something like it from the links in the video description below. We never want to push you guys into the wrong product, and that's why we go in depth with long format videos. And we do have the unbox, build, and radio setup, which is going to be immediately published with this video right before it. So if you don't know where to find that, you can look through our playlist on Brian Phillips RC on YouTube, or you can go over to our website, brianphillipsrc.com, and you can find whatever it is you need to find. We have literally thousands of videos about this and in this same format, where we have flown a brand new plane. We show you how it does. And remember, these are our maiden, first or second flights, sometimes our third flights that you're seeing. So keep in mind, you can always get better flying a plane. It doesn't get, it doesn't get worse than the maiden flight in most cases. But once you've crashed a plane and fixed it, sometimes it does get worse. Sometimes it gets better too. It just depends on what broke. So anyway, the FMS 1.3 meter PA-18, also known as a Sport Cub, really cool choice. Definitely probably favoring toward the more experienced pilot than the beginner pilot, but it's not a terrible beginner pilot choice, but maybe like a second plane I would think would be a good idea. So guys, hopefully that answered all your questions. Really high quality build, no problems, no elevators that stuck, nothing like that. We were lucky on this one. We went through everything with a fine-tooth comb just to make sure we wouldn't have problems. Sometimes things do go wrong, we understand that, but just make sure you check out your planes before you get them in the air and make sure you don't have any loose connections and stuff. And that's another reason why to watch the Unbox Build radio setup. And you're probably thinking, why are they so long? Well, because we answer a lot of questions as we go. If you're brand new, spend the time. If you don't have time, make time. If you don't have time and you don't want to make time, find a hobby that's not going to get you into so much debt and frustration. Because what's going to happen is you're going to buy an expensive plane, you're going to crash it, and you're going to be what we call a one and done. That is one of our principal missions in this hobby experience for us on Brian Phillips RC, is to stop you from doing that. We want you guys to have a great experience. We want you to start where you are and end up where you want to get and not quit. Because if you quit, then you're not going to enjoy this amazing hobby with us, and we want you to be here alongside. And yes, I still do love flying the trainer planes. It still makes me happy every time I do it, even if it's not a perfect plane. And I would say that this plane edges close to the perfection level. It's just maybe not great on the ready to fly. So anyway, guys, really appreciate you being here with us. Stay tuned, so much more from Brian Phillips RC.